Hey, what's up? It's Ben Giroux, and I play Big Nate on Paramount Plus. You are watching FaceTime with Todd Wharton.
You ever notice that most hurricane names are not that scary? So we decided to ask men and women, what if we named hurricanes after your exes? And that's where we came up with this segment, Hurricane X Factor.
This is an act of war. I'm not interested in your little ideas. I'm interested in something much larger.
We will stand on principle.
We have the opportunity to force their hand.
Didn't think it was going to be that easy, did you?
You are screwing with the wrong species.
If any of you sons of bitches got anything else to say, now's the f***ing time!
Where my fellas at?
Run, bitch! Run!
Yeah, that sounds about right. We'll be right back with Ben Giroux. Welcome back to the show, everyone. So my guest tonight is a well-known voice actor. He's also a writer, producer, and director. But right now, he's starring in a new show called Big Nate that you can find on Paramount Plus. It's a Nickelodeon series, and he plays the character of Nate Wright. But you know what? Let's take a look at a clip.
When it comes to pranks, you gotta let your creative juices flow. You gotta own it. Be you and be awesome.
Is that my fault?
Please help me get the neighbor's dog off my butt.
Please welcome to the show, Ben Giroux. Ben, how you doing, brother?
Good, man. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. First of all, I got to say congratulations because your career is crazy. Like, you've really done a lot of stuff in such a small amount of time. Like, I believe you're still in your 30s. Is that true? Or are you?
Yeah, 37 years young.
Oh my God. You've done more work than people going into their 60s and 70s. Like, how do you how do you breathe? Like, do you get any sleep?
Well, no, I appreciate you saying that. I think it's an exercise in compartmentalizing. So, I think when I first started in entertainment, all I wanted to focus on was being a TV actor. And all I cared about was generating on-camera television opportunities. Mm-hmm. And then after a while, that became not super satisfying. And so I really wanted to dive into other areas of entertainment. In the early days of YouTube, I started getting comfortable making my own content. That led to a pretty sizable, sort of internet social media audience. And now I like to say I sort of do it all: directing, writing, producing. I've got my own production company. 10 years ago, I would have said, hey, I'm just a TV actor. Now I just like to say I make cool stuff with my friends.
Yeah, which is awesome. By the way, your production company, Small Red Cape, I'm sure you've talked about, I don't know about it. Where did you come up with that name, Small Red Cape? Because it sounds like a superhero type of name.
I love that question. So I grew up in Phoenix, Arizona, and my parents growing up owned a series of comic book stores. Mm-hmm. So I actually grew up in a comic book store. And I used to run around the house in a little Superman cape. So it's an homage. When I named my company, it's an homage to my childhood growing up in a comic book store. And I also, when I first started a career on camera, I was doing a lot of height-specific roles. I'm a short guy, so I was playing a lot of elves and leprechauns and jockeys. It was very funny. I'm happy to sort of be having branched out from that now. But I wanted the word small in it because that was sort of the beginning of my career in entertainment. So it's both an homage to my parents and a little, nod to my first few acting roles.
Yeah, and I love that you say that. And I'm glad we're talking about that because some of the greatest names ever should be about where you came from because it kind of reminds you of where you started. Right. And look at where you are today. And I don't think a lot of people really understand that. I think they take it for granted. And I love that you always put homage back to your past because my show is called FaceTime, but it doesn't mean like, oh, it's on FaceTime. I call it that because honestly, I miss being able to talk like on a phone or whatever, or one-on-one, because people don't realize FaceTime is not a Facebook name. It means giving each other FaceTime. Right.
Well,
that's why I'm glad I asked you.
Yeah, no, I would say in many ways, almost everything I do in entertainment is fueled by nostalgia, a wistfulness for the past. I look at my animation career. I grew up watching, Doug and Rugrats and Ren and Stimpy on Nickelodeon. Now I'm sort of voicing my own cartoons at the network that I grew up watching. My viral content online, I make hip hop comedy nostalgia music videos, so it's so much of what I do is sort of celebratory about the past in a way.
Yeah. Now, I wanted to talk about that one video, though. You've talked about it before, but I don't think people actually made a metaphor of this. Your video that popped you into the realm where you met the Backstreet Boys, you kind of reminded me a lot of what Little Dicky did, Chris Brown, right? It's along the same, and I loved it. Where did you get the idea to actually do this? Because that's from my generation of Backstreet Boys. So it obviously wasn't something to make fun of. It was more about entertainment with the group, I think, was just blowing up. And still at that time, was that the inspiration behind that?
Yeah, it's a great question. So, initially the genesis of this project you're talking about is called Back to the 90s. Right. The genesis actually is a couple of years prior. I always wanted to make a sort of braggadocious hip hop music video about being a short guy. I told you some of my original acting roles were related to my height. So I was at my voiceover agency years ago, and I was talking to one of our audio engineers about this idea that I had. And he said, "Hey man, we actually represent a hip hop artist here at the agency. We should connect you to." So my voiceover agency connected me to my friend Jensen Reed, who's a brilliant songwriter, hip hop artist. And we collaborated on a project called Little Dude Anthem, which was basically me rapping dressed as an elf and a leprechaun and a Smurf. It was completely ridiculous, but a super high-end music video, and one that was supposed to be a one-off. It was supposed to just be like, hey, we're going to do this silly project, say we did it, and be done with it. What happened was Jensen and I so enjoyed working together. It was such an interesting combination of our talents, him as a songwriter, me as sort of a comic actor. And we said, well, hey, we should do something else. What else do we really connect with? What's sort of, something that we have in common? And we both were sort of wistful for our childhoods in the 90s. We were both sort of wistful for the past. So we said, hey, why don't we make a celebratory music video that sort of honors and parodies the pop culture and the music of the entire 90s decade? And so we spent 2 years working on that project. And we kind of felt like it was going to be something special. We poured our own money into it. And, it was nuts. When we put the video out, it got 100 million views. We charted on Billboard. It's funny you bring up Lil Dicky because we actually were number 11 on the Billboard charts that week to Lil Dicky, who I think was at number 10.
Oh, you're right. Into that. Yeah.
Exactly. So we thought that was super fun. And then the Backstreet Boys, who we parodied, big time in the video, sort of became aware of us, surprised us on live TV, invited us out to Las Vegas. So we had a good time with their endorsement. It was just a great example of if you want to do something and you're passionate about something, do it, because it can really ratchet you up to that next level in your career. And so many wonderful opportunities stemmed from our Back to the 90s experience, TV show pitches and commercial directing work from myself. It was a really, really exciting time for my team and one that really helped build the production company.
Yeah, you never know when a passionate project of your caliber can boost you to another level that you've been trying to get to for a while. I mean, a lot of people always told me working that, Todd, keep working hard, believe in yourself, passionate. You hear all the time online. People say it all the time. Well, most people actually don't do it. And when you do it the correct way, there's something called lightning strikes. And when it strikes, it's a rollover. It just keeps happening. Because you actually built something amazing, which you did. And I believe right now you're working on something, I think it's called Back to the 2000s. Is that something you're working on?
Yeah. So we did a sequel to Back to the 90s after we got tens of thousands of requests to like, hey, do the 80s. So we did one called Back to the 80s. And we didn't want to just do the same thing. So we wound up building, I think it was over 50 practical sets, recreating different sets from the 80s. And we shot that and put it out just before the pandemic in late 2019 or mid 2019. Also did really well. I think that's up to about 10 million views now. And we were initially going to immediately go into working on Back to the 2000s, another celebratory parody music video. And then this pesky thing called COVID happened. So now that life is starting to feel more normal, we have the track ready. The music is ready to go for Back to the 2000s. Our task now is to not fund it ourselves, but to link it up with a brand and hopefully get, a brand to cover it. We know there's going to be quite the audience for it. So that's one of our goals. We hope to put it together this year. I won't tell you exactly what the creative plan is for it, but I will tell you it is very inventive and very daring in terms of what we think we're going to need to do production wise. So in my opinion, it's probably going to be the best one yet. And so I'm really excited to film it.
Yeah, you should. And I can't wait for it to come out. Now, let's jump into what you're doing right now, because I've been building this interview up and you've been running right along with it, which I absolutely love. So there's a dope camaraderie going on here. You were talking about your height and a lot of your things. I think this role that you're doing right now, Big Nate, which is kind of like an oxymoronic name where it's a small guy in a big world trying to do big things by taking on big opportunities, right? Making big opportunities. And that seems like your whole entire life, where you saw yourself as a small guy trying to take on. I think you were built for this role. What do you feel about that?
Well, I appreciate you saying that. It's honestly so uncanny, not just myself, but the other series regulars on the show. Yeah. We really feel like we're playing heightened versions of ourselves, which is why this whole show and this whole ensemble has really clicked. And I think it shows in the end result. I think the show is really, really funny for kids and adults alike. Ultimately, Big Nate is our new animated series on Paramount Plus. It's via Nickelodeon animation. The story is based off of a very successful comic strip and series of books from the 90s. And what's been cool about it is we're using all of the same kind of characters and locations and relationships that many people know and love from the book series and the comic strip, but all of our TV episodes are completely original storylines. Nate is this sort of, precocious, likable prankster who gets him and his friends into tons of trouble. One of the crazy parallels between Nate and my own life is that Nate doodles. He's an artist. He draws comics on the show. We have a 3D CGI show, but Nate's doodles come to life as 2D animations within our show, sort of mixing media, which I think is a really clever use of multiple animation styles. And I grew up drawing. I grew up entering art contests and painting and drawing as a kid. So it's very strange and very uncanny and very full circle that I'm playing a character that, in many ways I really relate to.
Yeah, no, I love how you do the drawing and then it creates the characters, because one of my favorite movies of all time when I watched this, reminding me of it, was a movie with John Cusack called Better Off Dead, where he was, he always drew because it kept him in the fantasy world, but then the characters came alive, which helped him kind of live in the real world, I guess you could say. And when I was watching your thing, I'm like, wow, this is so cool. How come nobody's ever thought about this in the last 30 something years? Like, this is really a cool type of atmosphere. And I guarantee you there's a lot of comic people out there that probably do it every day in their brain. Like most comic people, literally, their fantasy world is kind of like not the real world, the Kim Basinger cartoon, the Doodles, right?
Yep.
That's a very popular thing. Now, what I love about what you're doing as a voice actor, social media has got to be your best friend, because nobody ever really knew who the voice actors were from Porky Pig or Ren and Stimpy or anybody. And you recently, well, not recently, but you have a TikTok channel right now, because TikTok is all about funny comedic stuff, right? Mm-hmm. But you were able to take your comedic stuff and put it out. And now the world can see you kind of on a daily basis. I mean, that must have been a great thing for you to take your career to the next level? I mean, what are you at? You're over like millions of viewers, correct, and followers.
It's about 4.5 million fans on the account right now. It's been great. Look, I've been so humbled to build a great relationship with particularly Nickelodeon over the last few years, last real decade, both on camera and with animation. And so my initial influx of followers on that platform were very young because they either grew up watching me on early, seasons of Henry Danger, or more recently know me from Danger Force, or obviously, Big Nate and some of my other animation work with Nickelodeon. So TikTok initially started, I think, with a pretty young crowd. And I think that certainly helped as I built my account. Now, it's funny. It was just sort of a fun app to play around with at the beginning of the pandemic. Now TikTok is integral to almost everything I do in entertainment. I solicit directing work that way. I'm working with so many different brands that want to hire me as a commercial director, but are also baking into their creative and their plans social media stuff. And they, what's one of the things I sort of pride myself on is understanding social media, knowing how to go viral on it, and knowing how to be successful with brands on it. So super grateful for TikTok because it allows me to develop a direct relationship with my fan base to promote our show or whatever projects I'm currently working on, and also a way to sort of solicit more opportunities and continue building on all of the different paths that I've got going in entertainment.
Yeah, I think it's great. Now, I have to ask, your relationship with Nickelodeon must be phenomenal because you were part of the Dangerverse series throughout. Now you're doing Big Nate. Are you looking to do a lot of partnerships with them in the future with a lot of the works that you're doing now with your production company?
Yeah, I mean, it's been so great over the years to, like I said, build sort of a connection with the studio on a deeper level. One example of just sort of the hybrid nature of everything right now is on TikTok. I have a successful series called Cartoon Voice Battle, where I challenge other voice actors into doing their voice, and then they attempt my voice, and we rank each other 1 out of 10. It's a fun thing that I started during the pandemic, during like the height of quarantine, for us to sort of showcase the wonderful community of voice talent that's out there, and also to sort of just build my fan base and connect with the Nickelodeon crowd. Well, Nickelodeon has decided to make it an online Nickelodeon series. So it's a perfect example of, the studio embracing some of the external content that I was making, because ultimately it supports our whole community of Nickelodeon voice actors and helps to promote Big Nate.
Yeah, I love social media now. I mean, if you can do it well, you can really build something great out of that. Now, you've been doing a lot of voiceovers a long time. But you were obviously an actor as well. I mean, you did Will and Grace, NCIS, Bones, Psych. My favorite show, which is House MD. I have to ask you, how was it to work on House? That was one of my favorite all-time shows.
Yeah, my one episode of House was a funny story. So I was in the cold open. It was like a 3-minute one shot. Right. And I remember I played a porn director in the show. And it was a one shot weaving through this house, and there's all these extras, and there's a horrible medical thing that happens to the main character on the show. And we shot it 27 times, I recall. And it was so long, and it was hot and brutal inside. And it's just like, if one thing goes wrong in that 3-minute one shot, you got to start back over at the top. And I think I was responsible for maybe 2 or 3 of the mess ups. Luckily, not more than that. And the other fun thing I can tell you about House, really great crew, really nice crowd. It is the best on-set catering I have ever had in my life. The food was phenomenal.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, and the cast is great, but I think it's funny. It's like you took that long. Like, how do you do so many takes as a porn director? Like, what can actually go wrong? It's like, okay, guys, this is what we need you to do. I need you to do the point. I need you to sit. And I need you to bring him a lot of protein and sandwiches so he can actually see.
It was a funny episode. It was, I was really grateful at the time. I think I shot that in like 2009, so it was a while ago. But it's just a great credit to have on the resume, great crew to work with. It was a fun episode. And I've been grateful to have so many wonderful television credits in addition to the kids content that I do that, it's just led to a pretty well-rounded resume, I would say.
Oh, it's an incredible resume. Now, I wanted to talk about the acting and bring that up because I would love to see you back in more TV, even film again, because you have this character about you where you can really play a lot of great roles. And I personally would like to see you on the screen again behind the voice. Are you looking to do some more of that right now to get out of the character and get back onto TV?
Yeah, absolutely. Actually in late 2019, early 2020, I was on like 3 shows at the same time. And then that pesky pandemic happened. I was doing Coop and Cammy on Disney. I was doing this great show called The Big Show on Netflix, which we were really bummed that it didn't get a second season, largely because of the pandemic. I would say, I was very lucky in that I was able to shift from a lot of the on-camera things that I was doing to voiceover. Wound up booking Big Nate the very first week of the pandemic. So I've been very grateful for voiceover over the last couple of years because it's been an incredibly safe thing to do in entertainment. That said, now that the world is feeling a little bit more open, certainly want to get back out there and start doing more on-camera stuff. I got a fun little part coming out in a Snoop Dogg produced movie called Bromates. Shot that a few months ago. So yeah,
tell me it's not the sequel to Soul Plane.
It is not. It is not. Snoop's in it though. I can tell you that Snoop's in it. So yeah, I think I'm just grateful that things are starting to feel a little bit more normal. I've got, I keep going back and doing more and more episodes playing the toddler on Danger Force. So that's been some fun on-camera work in recent months. So yeah, I'm sure things are going to continue to improve.
Yeah, and I think so too. And I got a feeling that the only reason why your thing, The Big Show, didn't actually pan out because during the pandemic, wrestling got shut down. Right. So that show ultimately got shut down because I think they were kind of piggybacking off the WWE.
Oh, yeah.
Right. I mean, it's a shame because the WWE, that's one of the people don't even realize how big of a following the WWE.
Oh, it was
crazy.
And that show was funny. Working with Paul, The Big Show, was a treat. He's just such a great guy. We had a really funny thing going. The recurring guest stars was great. It was me, Jaleel White. Who else was on? A lot of our episodes were directed by Melissa Joan Hart. It was just a really cool group. And undoubtedly COVID is the thing that ultimately killed it. I hope they'll look at maybe bringing it back at some point because it was just a great group of people. But like everyone else, we had to just sort of adapt once the pandemic hit and, just been so grateful for animation.
Yeah. Well, let me tell you something, man. First of all, congratulations on your career. You literally have another 40, 50, 60 years to go. That's the best part about being a voice artist, right? If you don't mind, would you do a little cameo, like montage of some of the voices? Because I want people to hear like your range of different.
Yeah. Well, so like most kids know me from that sort of on-camera role. The toddler, well. So a very subtle, nuanced voice. So I tend to do like. Most kids sort of recognize that since our Big Nate show is so new. Big Nate is a much more grounded voice.
Nate sort of talks like this. He's a little bit more, just a little higher in my register. It's less about doing a voice and more about just finding your inner awesome.
So it sort of runs the gamut, but I would say I did a show called Bunsen is a Beast a few years ago on Nickelodeon. Much broader, much more theatrical. I talked so high pitched. That was such a difficult voice to do consistently every week after week. So very grateful to do a voice like Big Nate, which is sustainable and grounded. And I think that just sort of helps our characters stay relatable.
Yeah. And by the way, Big Nate's been behind me the whole time. Just freaking.
He has.
He's been freaking me the hell out, man. Because it's like
he's leering over my shoulder.
Hey, everybody.
So lifelike.
Yeah, this actually was, Nickelodeon made these for the cartoon voice battle series. And I was like, I'm taking that. So I took it.
You know what that could be really cool? I would love, that looks like something I would buy from the ice cream man, like an ice cream.
Just a giant Big Nate like cake on a stick.
Yes, that would be great. It would freak kids out, but it's like, look, Mom, this is legal cannibalism. Check it out. I'm eating Nate. This is great. But, man, Ben, thank you for being on FaceTime with Todd Wharton, man. It's been so much fun, and congrats, man. Congrats on coming out of pandemic and continuing to work during the pandemic. Because I tell a lot of people that pandemic was one of the worst things that happened in so many lifetimes. But to a lot of artists, in some artists, it's been kind of a blessing for a career because you were able to be home and really dive into and create, right? All that time in the world that we never had. And I think voice acting has gotten bigger and better than ever because there's a need now. And I just heard that Avatar is coming out in December. So it just adds on to all these characters that are coming out that I think people are loving to do. What do you think about that?
Yeah, man. You know, first of all, I appreciate the kudos and the comments. It's very kind of you. Same to you. It's, it's a testament to just, constantly growing your show. I think, yes, I would say the biggest thing that I got out of the pandemic, as awful as it was and continues to be, because we were still very much in it, is I think it's allowed me to prioritize what's important, what I actually want to be spending my creative energy on, and more importantly, what I don't want to be. I think I said yes to perhaps too many things prior to the pandemic. And now I think I'm a little bit better at curating what gets my creative energy. And I think that ultimately has improved my creative output and the kind of work that I'm ultimately able to do.
Yeah. Well, like we said before, I think you and Big Nate both have something in common. You all grew up as small people, but I think you're doing big things. And I just see you doing bigger and better things in the future, brother. And congrats again. And again, thanks for taking your time out of your busy schedule and being a guest on FaceTime with Todd Wharton. I appreciate you.
Heck yeah, man. It was great chatting with you. Thanks so much for having me.
You got it, brother. Take care. So, Ben, thanks for being a guest on FaceTime with Todd Wharton, man. And like I said, congratulations on such an amazing career in such a short time. And I think you, and again, Big Nate, I think you're doing big things. And I think my fan base and your fan base, and I think the world agrees, man. And we look forward to a lot more great content, a lot more great work from you coming out in the near future. So, guys, I hope you enjoyed the interview with Ben. I know I did. But until next time, if you're not living a passionate life, then whose life are you living? Take care, everyone. I'll see you soon.
He is the most interesting man in the world.
I'm not always on YouTube, but when I am, I make sure I'm subscribed to FaceTime with Todd Wharton. Be thirsty, my friends.